What's up, Heat Nation? Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat basketball channel. My name is Amir. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. So, training camp just ended this week, and preseason basketball is coming up next. So, the Miami Heat are going to be playing against the Charlotte Hornets on Tuesday. And so, I'm excited that we're finally getting close to the start of the regular season. And I'm also excited that we no longer have to deal with the Damian Lillard trade sweepstakes, even though I'm not happy with the outcome, but I am over it. And I think now it's time to focus on the roster that we currently have. And I think it's time for the Heat to shock the world once again with Jimmy Buckets and the rest of this Miami Heat team. So, for today's video, I wanted to talk about just a few things that I haven't talked about yet. So, one would be Kyle Lowry and his expectation of being the starting point guard for the Heat this upcoming year. And then number two, I want to talk about some rumors that the Miami Heat could possibly acquire James Harden from the Philadelphia 76ers. So, starting off with Kyle Lowry. So, during training camp earlier in the week on Wednesday, he said that he thinks he should be the starting point guard for this Miami Heat team this year, even though last year he was demoted to the second unit, and Gabe Vincent ultimately became our starter towards the end of the regular season and for the playoffs. And we know that Gabe was a important piece and was very helpful when it came to our playoff run last year and making it all the way to the finals. And so we lost Gabe Vincent. He's obviously now on the Los Angeles Lakers. And so technically right now, Kyle Lowry is the only point guard on our roster. And he said that he thinks, based on his pedigree, his experience, he thinks that he should be the starting point guard. And it's hard to argue with that because, one, again, he's the only designated point guard and true point guard on the roster. So it's been speculated that Tyler Hero or Josh Richardson would play that position. And I think it would be more so leaning towards Hero. But with the Miami Heat, they play positionless basketball, and they have a lot of different playmakers. Jimmy could bring the ball up. He could play make for his teammates, Bam Adebayo. So we're not sure exactly who that starting lineup will be, but the projection was Hero and Richardson as our backcourt, and then we have Jimmy, Bam, and Kevin Love. I don't think Kyle Lowry should start for a few reasons. One, just because he is our only point guard, I don't think that should matter definitively. Like, one, he's 37 years old. He's obviously not the same all-star caliber player that he once was with the Toronto Raptors. He's had an up and down term with the Miami Heat. You know, his first year was not so bad. You know, he was actually important when Jimmy and Bam were both hurt. He was the one who actually helped us maintain our 1 seed in the East. So he did have some good moments, but he also faded away a lot in the playoffs. He had a pretty decent postseason last year, played in 23 games, and he played better off the bench. He was more efficient. His shooting percentages increased. But again, he can't really create shots for himself. He can for his teammates, which is good. Like, he was running the floor with the second unit, and I think playing against lesser competition, I think, was beneficial. So moving forward, you know, he's only going to get older. I think him playing with that second unit could be really impactful. He still gets his charges. He's still not bad defensively, honestly, but where we thought he would help us the most on offense and shooting, he just hasn't been the greatest in his 2 seasons with the Miami Heat so far. And he's been pretty injury prone, and he's also missed games due to personal reasons as well. So he's missed a good chunk of regular season games, and including some playoff games. So he's been unavailable at times, but then also when he's been available, he's not the most efficient. So I don't really want to see him as our starter, but I also don't think it's detrimental if he is our starter. Like, who cares if he's our starter for like, as long as Tyler starts, like that's like a non-starter there. Like he has to obviously start. Um, on this team, we need his points. I don't think he would handle that demotion after being in the trade rumors um, for the last four seasons or so in the row. Um, so I don't think it would be super detrimental if he does start and plays 20 minutes a game or so. Like let him play for the first like 4 minutes or so, and then bring in Jay Rich off the bench. So I would assume it'd be him and Tyler starting backcourt. So then you bring in Jay Rich. But that all depends again on how Kyle holds up defensively, because we all know Tyler is going to be a liability. So we can't have a 37-year-old point guard who might be slowing down on the defensive side, and then Tyler Hero, who gets targeted a lot during the regular season and playoffs. And so I don't know. I'm open-minded to it, but I still think he belongs on the bench running that second unit with Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, Thomas Bryant, and possibly Jovic, which I think is a solid bench. So let's talk a little bit about James Harden. There have been reports recently saying that the Miami Heat are not interested. There was an assumption that we would go after James Harden because we've missed out on every whale possible over the past 4 seasons. We missed out on Damian Lillard. We obviously missed out on Drew Holiday because I think the Portland front office simply didn't want to deal with us. He ultimately ended up going to Boston, so 2 of our biggest rivals got stronger this offseason, and we didn't make any significant moves outside of adding some minimum vet players like Richardson and Thomas Bryant, and then obviously drafting Hawkes and then giving Jovic some opportunity. But still, like we didn't really address some of our needs. One of our biggest needs was point guard, obviously, and we thought we were going to get that with Damian Lillard. That's why we let Gabe Vincent walk, and so we were okay with having Kyle come off the bench potentially. But assuming if we did trade for Dame, Kyle would have been a part of that deal just to make the money work, I'm assuming, and Portland would have wanted his expiring contract. But anyway, the assumption was that we would then probably target James Harden. We were linked to him, and then reports came out recently saying the Heat were not interested. And then there is a tweet by Shams, what was it, yesterday or a few days ago, and said the 76ers will work on a trade of the 10-time All-Star out of Philadelphia. And when you look at the landscape around the league, the Clippers and the Heat are expected to emerge in this process for James Harden, I'm told. So we all know that James Harden did show up to training camp. He didn't show up to media day on Monday last week. He did show up to camp in shape and was hustling and playing hard and communicating and hanging out with his teammates. So everything seemed okay on that front. But we all know that he wants to obviously get traded after what he said publicly about his GM, Daryl Morey, in China, and reiterated that also multiple times, calling him a liar. So we know that he is going to be traded, and ultimately he does want to go to the Clippers. That's his number one option. And then there's something out there that said now it's his preferable option, not the only option, not the only place he wants to go to. So I'm hoping they're not insinuating that means that the Miami Heat potentially could be interested, because I'm not a big fan of James Harden, honestly. I'm not delusional. I understand that he is still an all-star caliber player. He's not a superstar anymore. He's not a shell of himself, but kind of. I mean, he's a shell of his MVP self. But he's still a good, solid player. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's obviously a really good scorer, three-point shooter, really good playmaker to a certain degree. I mean, he's won the assist title the last couple seasons. Last year, he had the most assists last year at 10.7. So he averaged 21.6 rebounds, 10.7 assists per game, which is still pretty great. Shot 38.5% from three, 44% from the field. Yeah, he's still a good player, but I've never liked him. I just don't like his attitude. I don't like his mentality. I don't like the way he plays basketball. He is a foul baiter. He pounds the ball, like holds the ball way too long. I don't think he makes other players better, like as a point guard. Like he wasn't a point guard initially. He was more of a shooting guard. and I still think he is technically more of a shooting guard. He's kind of transitioned more into a point guard over the last few seasons, um, especially with the Rockets and then even with the Sixers. But I'm just not a big fan of him, man. He's not defensive oriented. He gives up a lot. Um, he obviously gives up on teams. He's requested trades now from 3 different organizations. So I think he's a quitter. I don't think he's a winner. He chokes all the time in the playoffs, like historically chokes. Um, I think the stat is that, like, out of all, I don't know how many games he's played in the playoffs. Played hundreds of games in the playoffs now, but um, in a third of his playoff games, whatever that number is, he's shot below 25% from the field in playoff games, which is insane to think about. Like, think of like any other superstar MVP type player. They might have a bad game here or there, but he's disappeared multiple times. And I'm looking at this article which highlights some of his games where he, played pretty poorly in big moments. Thinking back last year when the Sixers blew that 3-2 lead against the Celtics, he had an up and down series, but that's like his whole postseason career has been up and down. He's had some elite, amazing games, and then he's followed it up with duds. So he's been super inconsistent. Which, if you're a superstar MVP type player, you need to be consistent in the playoffs. You need to be the best player against the best competition. And so, like last year in Game 7, he only scored 9 points on 11 shots. So he shot under 30%. He had 5 turnovers. So again, not a great game, especially in a closeout game. And Game 6 versus the Celtics, he also struggled. He only had 13 points on 16 shot attempts. And again, he shot under 30%, which is pretty ridiculous. Game 3, he only had 16 points on 14 shots. So not as bad, but still getting that many points on 14 shots is quite a bit. He's not getting to the free throw line like he used to. So he's not getting that whistle. But yeah, he's had so many other games where he's played poorly, like against the Spurs in 2017 in the second round in Game 6. He had 10 points in an elimination game, like 10 points. This guy was a superstar at this point. He was an MVP. He won the MVP the following year, it says. So he was still in his prime. So those are just a few examples of how he choked. He also choked against the Heat back in 2022 and had a couple duds as well in that playoff series. So I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm also not stupid. Of course, I think he's a really good player. Honestly, he is a good player. He's a good regular season player, but he chokes, he disappears in the playoffs. And so again, I don't like his attitude. I don't like his style. I don't like that he doesn't play D. I don't like that he is more of a fan of going to the strip club and the clubs than putting in the work or just chilling during the regular season. Like during the off season, like you have all summer long, go to the club, do whatever you want in your free time. You're 34 years old. You're relatively young. Go do what you need to do. It's fine. You're rich. You're famous. You're a celebrity. But like last year in the playoffs, I think, was it last season, during the Celtics season or series, he asked Doc if he can take some time to go to Vegas. Like, what a joke, man. Like, can you imagine MJ, or I mean, I know MJ, I could imagine him going to Vegas, obviously, with his love of gambling, but can you imagine like an MJ, a Kobe, a Shaq, like any player, like a Tracy McGrady, I don't know, I'm just going to name random names, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, like any of these type of all-star, superstar type players, like going to Vegas or a club, like during the season or during the playoffs to unwind, like unreal. So I don't know. Some Heat fans were thinking that we absolutely need to make a move. We are thin at point guard. He's an upgrade clearly from Kyle Lowry. I'm not going to argue against that. But some fans just want us to make some sort of move. And again, he's on an expiring contract, right? He's making, I think, 36, $37 million next year. And it's an expiring deal. This is a prove it season for James Harden. This is his last opportunity to get any sort of decent contract after this. And so he does need to play hard to establish that credibility for his final paycheck. And if he wants to get a decent deal, he's got to play really well. I'm sure he would want to get extended with the Heat, or possibly just play really well and get paid by some other team. So it could be a good prove-it opportunity, and we do have the ability to match Kyle Lowry's salary and throwing in like a Duncan Robinson to get Harden. And Greg Sylvander and other folks have said that we can get PJ Tucker as well. For that trade, the Heat would probably have to add in some draft equity, and I'm not a big fan of offering multiple picks for James Harden. If it was Duncan, I don't know if I want to even get rid of Duncan, but I guess if you get James, then that makes up for his three-point shooting to a degree. So Duncan, Lowry, and a first for those two wouldn't be the worst trade. It wouldn't be the worst thing to do for a Flyer, hypothetically. But in my opinion, I wouldn't want to do it because I'm not a fan of him. I don't think we need James Harden on this team, and I don't know. There's not enough time for him to buy into Heat culture. I know, like, coming into our system and our program, that can help, but he's already missed training camp. He's already missed media day, and he would only be here for 1 year. It'd be a 1-year rental, and unless they win a championship or something. But even then, I don't think they would want to pay him. But I don't know. Like, we do have the best coach, one of the best organizations, but like, he's not going to be in our program for that long. It's going to be like 8 months, and I don't know. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Like, he seems like to be super stubborn. And yeah, I just don't think he fits the Miami Heat's culture. I don't know. Am I desperate after this whole Damian Lillard saga? Like, kind of. Like, I know it takes all-stars and superstars to win in this league, right? It's a star-driven league, so you need star power to win. And he clearly still is an all-star. Like, he got snubbed last year. He should have been an all-star. He's still getting 21 and 10. He's getting a double-double. Like, that's hard to do. But yeah, I don't know. I just think, just with my opinion on him, I just don't like him at all. And I'm not a big fan. And I just hate that he doesn't play defense and doesn't show up in the playoffs mostly. But I could see why some Heat fans would want him on our team. He would be essentially our third option, like our third best player. So Jimmy and Bam are clearly better than him overall at this point in his career, in my opinion. And so he would be the third option on that team, but he would then be the number one scorer. And I'm sure him and Bam could coexist really well. And Bam could be a lob threat, similar to how Capella was when he was on the Rockets. He could make Bam better offensively, possibly, but I don't know. Again, like, I feel like he pads the stats. I don't think he's not like a Steve Nash type of point guard, a Jason Kidd type of point guard, where he makes the people around him better. He doesn't make their jobs that much easier. Like, he just plays hero ball. He pounds the ball, dribbles it way too much, foul baits. I just don't love his game. I know he's super talented, but I'm just not a big fan. So I'm not interested in Harden. If it happened again, like, I kind of would be pissed, but I don't know, man. Would I be open-minded? Possibly, just because he still has some left in his tank, and it could be interesting to see how he coexists with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and fits in, and we'll see if he even buys in. But I still think Clippers are going to find a way somehow to get him, and he's going to get reunited with his buddy Russ, and they're going to have a weird, awkward fit with these four players who obviously all need the ball in their hands as well, with Kawhi, PG, Russ, and Harden. So that could be interesting as well. But yeah, in my opinion, not a fan. I don't think we need him, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys think two things. One, that Kyle Lowry is out of his mind for wanting to be the starter. Do you think it's crazy that he could potentially be our starter? I don't think it's going to happen, but What are your thoughts on that? And then what are your thoughts on the Heat acquiring James Harden? Are you guys open to it? Let me know. And like, what is he worth? Is he worth 2 first-round picks, Lowry, and then another player? I don't think he is. So just let me know in the comments what you think he's worth. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you can, guys. I'm on my path to 400 subscribers, and I'm getting kind of close. So if you guys can support the channel so I can create more content like this, yeah, please go ahead and sub to the channel. It would mean a lot. So thanks again, guys. That's all I have for tonight. Take care. Bye.